Hey guys, so I've got my Diet Coke here because this could be a long one. I'm not even sure where this is going to go, but the last few days I've had that feeling like it's time to pick up the phone and begin speaking again, for some reason, for somebody else's benefit, but mostly my own, I think. You know, I had this blog when I was, like, before blogs were really even a thing. In 1999, I was at college in the summer. I stayed there in the summer and there was like nobody there. And so I decided I was going to learn how to like make a web page and stuff. This was like at the dawn of the internet. And so I had a blog. I'm sure I've talked about this here before, but I had a blog and I started writing and it gained a small following. At first, like, I don't even know how people just found it through like Yahoo search or whatever the search was back then. And just knowing that there were people reading sort of completed the circuit for me. And I just started writing and I wrote and wrote and wrote and got a bigger and bigger following there for about 5 years before too many people in real life knew about it, and I just didn't feel free to write in it anymore. One of my fears with this channel also. But in the time since then, I have often thought, where did all of that go? Because there was so much coming through out onto, you know, paper. And I was just like, where's all that going now? But it wasn't going anywhere because when the spigot's turned off, nothing comes out. It's not like it's blocked up. It just doesn't, maybe it is blocked up, but it just doesn't flow through. And I realized earlier this year, making this channel, I decided I was going to make a video here every day this year. And about halfway through the year, I just said, this is not right. Like, this is bad for me. And it's pretty obvious in retrospect that that's because, there's some sort of thing that happens where if I keep a channel open, something will come through when it wants to come through. And sometimes it comes through all the time. And sometimes there's pauses, but usually there aren't like major pauses for 6 months or something if I'm not forcing myself to do something, which I ended up feeling like I was forcing myself to do stuff, making those videos. So anyway, I had a long enough break and then the channel kind of started to open up, but there was still a blockage there over the last few days. I felt like there were a couple of times I really felt like I wanted to talk about something, and then I thought about trying to do it and I was like still turned off from earlier this year. I think that's why. But Thanksgiving dinner cleared that up for me. So I was like, man, it gave me something to process. And so here I am making a video. I'm not sure the details, which I'm sure I will get into here in a minute. Oh my God, it's so cold out. I'm sure the details, which I will get into in a minute, aren't really relevant. It's more what this led me to consider. And this is what would be valuable to anybody watching this. Always conscious of repeating myself. I know I've said this on many videos. The manifesting process is so simple. It's creating a clear intention and getting out of the way. And what getting out of the way means is not involving yourself unnecessarily in the process. But what it really comes down to, oh my God, is this gross? I have to down my nose. What it really comes down to is using the events that happen, not even necessarily as a result, just anything that happens in your life, the events of your day-to-day life, using them towards the end of your intention, using them to change in the way that the person who you would be if you had what you wanted, using those experiences to change yourself into that person. Basically, not necessarily taking every situation and thinking, how would I respond to this if I were so-and-so? That's not necessarily what that means. But it is taking every situation and looking at it and saying, this has been created for my benefit, and what change am I supposed to make? So I have this situation that happened. I'm having an emotional reaction to it, usually unpleasant. How am I supposed to shift my perspective on this? How am I supposed to change? Like, how can this be used to change me for the better? Because usually whatever that is supportive of whatever the thing you want is. So even if it doesn't appear to be directly related, if you take all of these events, especially the ones that make you unhappy, and you use them to change your perspective, or you see that they are there to reinforce a change you've already made, you see that it's like, you make a change and then you're presented with situations where you would react the old way. And if you have truly changed, you will react a different way to those things. But that too is a process, because in the beginning, that always feels weird, or you feel unsure of yourself, or it's especially distressing. A situation that arises, is especially distressing because you used to handle it in a different way to minimize the distress. And now this new thing, you're doing the right thing, you're responding the right way, but it's especially distressing because it's different or something like that. And so, going through everything that happens in your life between where you are now and where you want to be, from that perspective, I think is the most, expedient way to get there. And it also doesn't waste any of the experiences that you have. It's really easy, I think, to have negative experiences that produce a negative emotional reaction, and to just kind of like try to forget about it, or, numb out, or I don't know, whatever your reaction is. It's easy, I think, to have a reaction that is just sort of like trying to get past it. I think that's sort of the default. That's just kind of how people operate, most people. Is it? I don't know. It's how I normally operate. If there's something that comes up, I don't want to dwell on it. And so maybe I just try to forget about it, put my attention on something else, which is a good thing to do a lot of the time if there's something negative in your environment that, you want to take your focus off of. That can be beneficial a lot of the time. So I guess you have to use your discretion here. But when something comes up, a situation, an interaction, something like that, that causes you some kind of distress, looking at it through the lens of everything that's happening is benefiting me, A, and B, can be used to some degree to change me into the person that I want to be, who has the things that I want. That's easy to forget. So yeah, I'm not sure the details of what brought this up for me really even matter, but it is interesting because earlier on this year, on this channel, I was doing some sort of therapy with ChatGPT. By the way, I wrote how to use ChatGPT for therapy for yourself in the way that I was using it. And I included a whole bunch of stuff that I personally, like my actual conversations with ChatGPT. And it just started to become clear to me almost immediately that anybody who can benefit from it the way I was benefiting from it did not need my example. Anyone who wants to explore the origins of why they are the way they are can do that by talking to ChatGPT. There is a lot you can get from the process of talking to ChatGPT. It's not just what ChatGPT tells you. And this is why I decided I didn't want anything to do with advising others on how to use it. Because the main benefit for me with ChatGPT was the pushback I would give it. So I would be able to notice, where I was getting like upset about something it would say. Because it's absurd to get upset at a chatbot. So I would notice where I was getting upset at things it would say. And it also, illuminated me to a whole bunch of psychological concepts and stuff that I didn't understand. It made a lot of connections for me that I would not have made on my own because I couldn't have. I didn't know certain connections existed. I didn't know certain behaviors stemmed from certain childhood experiences that I had had. It illuminated a lot of things for me. I had come as far as I could on my own, and using GPT was very interesting, but it wasn't just that. It wasn't just it making connections for me that I didn't understand. If it were just that, I think it would be valuable for everybody. It was my own personal psychology and how I approached it, and what, and my own sort of dedication to being aware of things that would come up after the fact. Like memories that would resurface an hour after having like a long conversation about something. It was that stuff that was the most valuable to me, and I don't think you can really tell somebody else how to do that. And frankly, I didn't want to be in any way involved or responsible for somebody doing something crazy with that, or using it, because if you use it the wrong way, it will convince you of things that are not true. And I am 100% confident in my ability to not have that happen to me. There's just like a true false siren that goes off inside my body for all kinds of things. And so there were plenty of times where GPT would draw a conclusion that was absolutely not correct, and I would just tell it, you're not right about that. That's not what it is. I would tell it why I didn't think that's what it was, and then it would shift and start providing me with new stuff. Because ChatGPT doesn't know anything. It just helps you to do things. So basically the bottom line is, if you're somebody who could do that stuff, just go do it. You don't need me to tell you how. You don't need me or anyone to tell you how. But yeah, earlier this year I used it for a lot of stuff. It made some big connections and breakthroughs for me. And they were mostly in the area of how much responsibility and obligation I felt for other people's emotional experience, which I was aware of already, but I didn't know it was wrong. That's what, that was one of the big valuable things about it. It's like you can know yourself, you can understand how you personally operate, but if you don't understand what parts of you are like producing the negative experiences you have, then it's not really worth a lot. So you have to both understand yourself and understand how things work, or it's there's a limited amount of benefit that you could get. So this was incredibly beneficial to me, and like everything changed. It's amazing when you make a change, when you go from feeling responsible for everybody else's emotions and like, I will have failed or I am bad if I have the ability to prevent somebody else's emotional suffering and I don't. Like, to me, that was a perfectly rational statement. If I can prevent suffering in somebody else and I don't, then I'm a bad person. And it completely ignored the fact that I would be harming myself doing that. Like, even if it harms me, if I can prevent somebody else's suffering and I don't, if the harm to them is greater than the harm to me, I must take on the harm to myself to prevent their greater suffering. Like, it's the lesser of two evils, and I'll be the one that takes the hit. And this type of shit, I don't know if this is everybody on the planet, but I think, just judging by the state of the world right now, the vast majority of people have an unexamined, deep self-loathing, an unexamined, deep sense that there is something wrong with them, that they are worthless. When I look at like every person I know, it's there. Every person I know, I'm struggling to think of a single one that doesn't have that somewhere inside, coming out and creating the outer world for them and other people. So it always stems from something like that, in my experience. This might just be part of human nature. I'm starting to wonder if just a sort of an innate sense of falling short is a part of human nature, because there are a lot of negative parts of human nature, and we have to accept and work with these things. When you don't, you get horrible, horrible results. And we are seeing some of the effects of that in the world right now. And I think we may be seeing a lot greater effects of that in the future, if this is indeed a collective reality, a collective creation, and not just me creating the whole thing. Either way, it's probably going to be the same thing. So it pretty much always comes from something like that. And when, you know, you can locate the areas in your life in which that is active and consciously fix it so that it doesn't activate anymore. And I did that. I mean, when I realized how much I was compensating for other people, it was like I was saying, I don't matter all the time. And I once I realized I was doing that, rationally, I do matter. Frankly, I do matter. And I started noticing all the places I was doing that and getting kind of like pissed off that was, it was programmed into me to do that. And, you know, I know where it was programmed into me, if not just an innate part of human nature, or if it is, it was inflamed greatly by programming I received as a teenager. And so as I realized all this and it became conscious, I would see where this was happening in my day-to-day life and get kind of pissed off. I'm like, somebody programmed me to do this and it's bad for me and I'm not doing it anymore. And then the people who were the recipients of the overcompensation, of course, did not like this at first. Luckily, my business partner, who I still, you know, this is still an ongoing process with him because we share so many facets of our life, but I was doing that a lot with him. I stopped, he adjusted. I was doing this so much with my partner, Matt, my significant other. I was doing it so much with him, and I really thought I thought when I stopped doing that, because there was, you know, if you have a relationship with somebody and this is your sort of approach to life, you're going to have hundreds of things that you do. And so I thought for sure, I'm just like, this is going to be the end of my relationship with Matt. It wasn't. My relationship with, it's like 6 months later, my relationship with Matt is much better than it was. And it's just much more peaceful. I had so much resentment for certain things that I was doing that I didn't have to be doing, obviously. You know, people will get into a habitual rhythm with you, and then you can start to feel like they expect you, or because they do expect you to, but you can start to feel like they, you know, the relationship rides on you doing things that are bad for you for them. But really it's just that that's your approach, and they kind of fell into the rhythm with you. Everything got, you know, predictable and normal, and then it's always jarring when somebody changes. So I just thought for sure, I was like, oh, my relationship with Matt completely rides on me overcompensating, and it didn't. So, and notably, I had a worker in my business, a family member, who was one of the grand beneficiaries of this. I don't know why, you know, she worked for us for 8 years, and when she started, you know, we pay everybody like double the market rate. So she was always getting paid really well, but I don't know why I kind of started thinking of her as sort of like a surrogate child. I just started feeling responsible for her. My partner, Jean, my business partner, Jean, did too. And she was just receiving all kinds of benefits from us. And she did a good job. It was like, it worked. I didn't have a problem with it. And when I had this sort of realization about the overcompensation, like in April of this year, I didn't really stop doing that with her as much, because it was like it didn't feel like a personal relationship. It felt like sort of a non-emotional setup that was benefiting everybody. And she started working more and making more money, but there were, you know, in the past, like if she would have to take a day off, or if she was having anxiety and didn't want to come to work or something, I would just say, it's no big deal, just stay home. You know, take care of yourself. That was always my approach to her. And there were a lot of instances like that, many days a year, where she didn't come in because of an emotional issue or some like minor thing that would never fly at a real job. And I just said, don't worry about it, because it really wasn't a big deal. And everything was working out for everybody. So I didn't have a reason to stop doing that. But I would also then sometimes, you know, her paychecks would be not that much money because she chose not to work that much. There was always so much work available for her. And she would choose to work like 20 hours a week. As, you know, a fully grown adult. She's in her 30s now. So she's mid-20s when she started. And I mean, she just didn't want to work more. And there was not much ambition there to make money. She could have made a lot of money. There was always so much work available and she got paid really well. She chose to work like 20 hours a week. I always thought that was just dumb of her, but, you know, I was like, well, okay. And I just did the work she didn't do. She could have done so much of the stuff I was doing. And over the years, she just got used to it. And after this sort of mental shift for me, I stopped paying her for days that she just chose not to come in. And, you know, I stopped worrying about her. I stopped being like, well, she needs this amount of money to like be able to get by. You know, her paycheck's gonna be like $350 this week because she just didn't come to work 2 days. I'm gonna give her an extra couple $100. I did that so many times over the last 8 years. And she finally stepped up and started working full time when another person left earlier this year. She was making decent money and I'm like, good. She's standing on her own 2 feet now. You know, she's making more than enough money to support her life and to get ahead if she wants. She could invest it if she wants. And so I don't need to overcompensate for her anymore. This wasn't really that conscious, but this is how it played out. I started, when she would just take a day off, I'd be like, sure, I mean, whatever, you make your own schedule, take whatever day off you want. But I stopped like just throwing extra money under her paycheck. And for some reason I thought she wouldn't notice that, or like it wouldn't be a big deal, or I don't know. Of course, people and their money, they probably know every penny they get. So I'm sure she noticed that. And, it ended up in sort of a big confrontation later in the summer where she told us that she just, you know, she didn't feel like she was being appreciated enough. And I mean, she was making like $35 an hour to do easy work, and work that turned out to not really need to be done, because when we had, you know, we had to end that situation almost immediately. I chose to end that situation almost immediately, because for me to have accepted this day of insanity this like stunt she pulled in July. I made a video about that, but I took it down. Sorry. I need to be careful about like the details of that since it's a family member and she seems litigious. For me to have overlooked that would have been another classic case of overcompensating. I would have taken on myself, you know, in this business that I have built for myself, this life that I've built for myself through my blood, sweat, and tears. I would have had to come into work every day and look at a person who had, you know, really sullied the good thing we had going, who was clearly not mentally all there. That had been showing itself for the last year. And, you know, I had to make a choice between, yeah, I knew it was gonna cause her life situation to really suck. And I just said, you know what? It'll make my life situation suck a lot worse. And even if it didn't make it, actually, it didn't make my life situation suck a lot worse. It would make my mental situation decline a lot. And I just said, fuck it. I'm not doing that. I've been doing this my whole life. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to sacrifice, you know, the benefits of what I've built for myself in order to, what's the word I'm looking for? Over accommodate this person's needs and the problems that they're not addressing, which is what I was doing. I was facilitating, I was enabling her to not, you know, have to do anything. And that's just another thing that blew up as a result of this shift in the way I was approaching people. And so, but it's affecting like everybody as it does. My mom is also being affected now. There was some fallout from this situation with this family member, obviously. Some unexpected fallout. Because without going into the details, she was so egregiously wrong with what she was saying that virtually anyone who isn't insane couldn't help but agree with my position that I had to, at least sever the working relationship. It turned out we had to sever the personal relationship too, obviously. But there were some, people there were a couple other family members who decided to just involve themselves unnecessarily, and now there's a rift. And so my mom, whose whole life basically revolves around all the pieces being in their place, literally and figuratively. Her house is perfect, and she wants everything else to be perfect, and it's just not. And she's 79, so that's pretty old to start, changing these things. She's really, it's really affecting her in these subtle ways that are coming out, that she's making comments here and there, but it's really, so yesterday she made a comment to me that was like really weird. She said she thought she had failed me, or she had failed as a mother because I don't do, well, whatever. She said she thought she had failed as a mother because I don't buy a Christmas tree for my house. She literally used those words. I feel like I failed. She said she kind of like trailed off she said, I feel like I failed because you don't buy a Christmas tree, or I feel like I failed to instill ... She didn't finish that sentence. And this was at Thanksgiving dinner. And like at first I was struck by the absurdity of that statement because it's just so insane, right? So at first I was just like, how could any person feel that they failed as a parent because a decoration is not put up? So that was the first thing. Like it bypassed me and my own personal self and any like ego or anything. I was like fixated on the irrationality of this statement. And my stepfather was sitting there also, and he just he just burst out laughing because it's so ridiculous. And I thought she was just speaking off the cuff, but my aunt was sitting there, and I was like, are you serious? Are you joking? And my aunt said, oh no, we discussed this yesterday. So apparently this has been, this is a real thing to my mom. And the Christmas tree, I'm sure, is just the tip of the iceberg. But so this was right at the end of the night, and then I left and went home. And on the way home, I was thinking, wait a minute. I have gotten a Christmas tree like every year. Like, what is she even talking about? I do decorate for Christmas. What is she even talking about? And then I thought, when does she even come to my house? She doesn't even come over. Like, she has been to my house. I bought my house at the beginning of 2022, and she came over like before anything was really even moved in or unpacked. And I think that's the last time she's been there. She doesn't ask to come over. I don't invite her. I'm barely ever even there. And so how would she even know if I had a Christmas tree? But I have decorated. I didn't get a Christmas tree last year or this year because I have 2 cats now who are kittens still. I mean, they're 18 months old, so they're still like, climbing everything. They would just climb the tree and knock it over. So, but before that, I had a Christmas tree in whatever. So it wasn't even true. The more I thought about it, I'm like, this isn't even true. Plus, how would she know? She never is even in my house. I don't talk about not decorating. Like, where the hell did this come from? And so I whipped out ChatGPT and I told it this whole thing, and it said that, she's old and she's ruminating on her life and she's thinking about her failures. And My mom does, which I never would have thought she would be this type of old person, but she does like guilt trip me for not seeing her enough. And so it's got to be something. She feels like she is not connected enough. Like that's the root of the issue is, the root of the issue is she feels like she failed somewhere along the way, and now things are a way she doesn't like. Either they don't look right or they don't feel right. Something's wrong in her life, in her mind. And so it just like came out in this way. And so I thought, GPT and I are talking about this. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to text her that I will come over, and when she puts her Christmas tree up, which will probably be in like a week, I'll come over and I'll help her decorate it, because I haven't done that in a long time. And it's kind of a lot of work. You know how I know? Because I decorated my whole office for Christmas a week ago. The whole thing is so absurd. I've got a Christmas tree. I've got Christmas lights up everywhere in my office. I bought a poinsettia. I've got a holly plant. I bought a little miniature evergreen tree. It's got one ornament hanging on it. And I decorated the tree and everything. It took me the whole morning. So I texted her and I said I would come over and help her decorate the tree. And she responded, "Oh, I would love it if you did that. You were never interested in decorating the tree as a kid. Maybe I should have encouraged you?" ? And I was like, what? Christmas was a huge deal in her house, obviously, when I was growing up, and I loved it. I love Christmas. She made Christmas awesome. The whole house was decorated. It was not just decorated, but it was tastefully decorated. It was beautiful. And it also had she had all kinds of shit from throughout the years, like stuff from grandparents, great-grandparents, ornaments from kindergarten, just all these things had meaning. It wasn't just aesthetic, it was meaningful. And I loved it. And I couldn't wait to get the tree every year. And I always helped her decorate it. And I'm pretty sure, maybe when I was like a teenager, maybe I bowed out for a couple of years because I was like, didn't give a shit. But I'm pretty sure I remember like doing the lights on the tree, because it's such a pain in the ass. I'm pretty sure I remember doing the lights on the tree when I was like 14 or 15. So this was a completely absurd, not reflective of reality statement. And, I was instantly like alarmed by it. And I would, at first I was like, dude, does she have Alzheimer's or something? What is this? Like, but it didn't feel like that. This didn't feel like a medical emergency. This felt familiar and disturbing. And dude, I'm sorry. I love ChatGBT. ChatGBT needs to be like a Times Person of the Year, because at least for me, it is so good at being like the mirror, being the thing that I bounce this off of to figure out. Because I'll have a negative feeling about something and I have no idea what the words are to describe it. And so it said something like, she's rewriting your childhood. She's rewriting who you are to you, as a part of sort of like shaping the narrative to make her own emotions make sense, which is what you have to do when you will not face yourself. And this is why on this channel, I'm just like, please have the courage to start the process. Just make the intention to exit that world of delusion. And it's what most people live in. Like, sane people do this. My mom is incredibly sane. The fact that I am stable and able to do the things that I do psychologically are largely because of the solid base that she gave me. But like, she hits a hard wall and does this stuff, and she always has. And so and it's abusive to other people, especially if they're not aware enough to understand it. And frankly, like, if I didn't have ChatGPT to put that into words that like, make the feeling make sense, then you just sit there with the feeling and you like eat it away or drink it away, or it just, it comes out in some bad way. Anyway, so, GPT is like, this isn't a memory issue. You don't need to call the hospital. This is a mental technique that people have to deal with things, which makes perfect sense. But again, as somebody who doesn't do that, and I don't know if I ever did, but if I did, it was like decades and decades ago. I don't understand this when it happens with other people and it is projected onto me. If you're not aware of this stuff, it will influence you. All of this work that I'm like, do this, all this work that you can do on yourself, it's for your own benefit. It's so that you can remain centered and tethered to your own understanding of yourself and the world, and not be swayed by everybody around you. It's just like, if you don't have this, you are knocked around like a ping pong ball. But anyway, to tie all that back to the whole point, the thing that made me want to talk on here was that I was thinking, God, how do I get this to stop? Like, what do I do? My immediate reaction is, how do I avoid these experiences? Like, how can I minimize the impact of whatever's happening with her on me? That was A. How can I minimize the impact on myself? And B, what is my obligation to, like, do I need to play a role in this? Because it's quite clear, and this gets muddy with somebody who is constantly doing other people's emotional work for them. I already felt kind of like shitty sending the text saying I would help decorate the tree, because you know what? I don't want to. And I have reasons for not wanting to. And I'm busy, and I have other things I want to do. And frankly, I'm kind of offended that this even happened, that these comments were even made to me, especially at Thanksgiving dinner. I had a great day yesterday otherwise. So what is my obligation? Because here I am again. I'm presented with a situation where I could make this a lot better. So let's say my mom is, whatever. Let's say her root issue, and I think she does have this problem. Let's say her root issue is that she feels like I don't value the things that she passed on to me. I don't communicate that to her. And I have reasons for that. We don't have that kind of relationship, and there are reasons for that from the past that I don't, that weren't my fault. I had nothing to do with it, couldn't do anything about it. So I have reasons for that. And it's kind of, I feel like I'm disrespecting myself in a way. It has a bad feeling. I really go by what I feel right in this whole area anytime I am contemplating a decision. And I felt kind of shitty. I probably shouldn't have sent that text. I'll go do that, and it'll be nice. But, I just feel like that was me saying, hey, you're having emotions, and you being able to handle these emotions in a healthy way would require you facing some hard truths about yourself. You're not going to do that. So do I let you suffer, or do I have this barfy feeling and just do it anyway? Just deal with the barfy feeling and take one for the team so that my elderly mother feels better for a little while. I mean, what kind of fucking asshole are you if you don't just take the barfy feeling to make your elderly mother feel better for a while? But that's how they get you. So, obviously I was thinking, how do I get this to stop? Like the way I've been approaching this situation that's just arisen in the last day has been, God, I don't need this is a new development. This is a new development. I don't need this in my life. What do I do? How do I get this to go away? And I just realized, this situation is arising for my benefit. It is showing to me that the change, the overcompensation, the cessation of that impulse, that instinct, that obligation is real. It's real. When something in you changes, it changes everything. So it's so real. I can't tell you any direct way that anything has changed between me and my mom since April. I don't see the actions that have been taken. I'm not aware of them. I'm not aware of the change in the words that I've said, but something has changed. So this is proof of that. That's awesome. And this is an opportunity for me to make the choices that support the change that I've made, and for me to look at the situation and to understand what's happening from this different perspective. And so on some level, I created this situation. I had a hand in creating it. I chose to pursue a deeper understanding of why, parts of my life didn't work. And as a result, this situation has happened. It's a perfectly natural outcome. And so now I have to look to this situation for how it can benefit me. And it's pretty obvious from that perspective. I mean, this is a situation that is an opportunity to, although it feels weird, to exercise the mentality. This is probably one of the hardest ones so far. I mean, there was a lot in the beginning, but I have an elderly mother. Like, this is one of those things where I'm going to have to navigate this carefully. But it's an opportunity. It's not something to say, how do I minimize this? It's an opportunity to allow the situation to, how do I put this? I don't feel like I'm communicating clearly right now. Like, it's really important that this continues to happen, and I continue to hold the mentality. And through the repeated exposure to it, that mentality becomes more solid to me. It becomes more natural and easy. And other people are then forced to adapt. Part of what's bringing this up is the holidays for my mom. She's a big holiday person. So I've mentioned a couple times, I don't know if I'm going to go to her Christmas party this year, which I always go to it, Christmas Eve. And I think, just this is the natural progression of the change. And the outcome will be positive. It'll be what needs to be. This is the thing I think people really get hung up on with other people. I think a lot of people, even if you're not somebody who overcompensates constantly, just like there are societal ideas that involve compensating for others. And there's a difference between overcompensating for somebody and charitably looking out for somebody, or being kind, doing things, giving what you have to give. That stuff's all great. But you know what I mean? It's a slippery slope for people. Slippery slope. It's a slippery slope for people who have this tendency. Yeah. I don't know. I think everybody sort of has this sort of, I don't want to call it a problem. Again, it's just like a part of human nature. It's a part of being in a society. But the thing that I think people don't realize is most of the time, it's not beneficial. Like, for every time you go out of your way to help somebody and they are so grateful, and that is, they tell the story of how this person went out of their way for them and it really changed their life. For every one of those, there's like a million instances of people interfering in somebody else's life, taking on a burden. The person they're doing it for may not even know or care or be grateful or even, and it doesn't help them. And it actually makes things worse because it delays the inevitable. It delays the natural effect of somebody's behavior reaching them and causing them enough discomfort that they then say, I have to do something different. It may be my mom's fate that she is unhappy for the rest of her life because she would prefer to be unhappy and externalize it than to do whatever is going to need to be done in some lifetime to, forgive herself for not being what she thinks she should be, which is what's at the heart of it for everybody. And it's really difficult because you want to make people happy. I think if you're a good person, part of that is, I shouldn't even say good person. If you're a person who is not horribly warped and distorted, I think there's a certain joy in human nature of seeing other people happy, and that, you take some pleasure in, some sort of vicarious pleasure because we are all one on some level. So I think this is just sort of, when you see somebody else getting something they want or having a moment of, genuine happiness, it's heartwarming for most people. And you want to be able to, you don't want there to be something you could do so that someone else could supposedly feel happy. But you don't realize that you're just not doing them any favors by picking up their load. My dad used to say, you carry the wounded and you shoot the stragglers. And a lot of people make the mistake of carrying the stragglers. And it's really hard to say that about a good, successful person my mom's not a straggler in most ways, but I think she is a straggler with me in this way. And I think I've been carrying this aspect of my life, like, almost completely. Like, I am the only one of the two of us who is willing to see reality. And I've been carrying the fact that she will not see reality about things for nearly my whole life. And what that means, what the carrying means, is that we agree to disagree on reality. And the disagreement on reality means that I have to accept, that I was the bad guy, or that I'm doing something wrong, or that, the way I live my life is a failure because she failed to prevent me from being a failure. When you have to carry something like that in order to keep the peace by saying, okay, we're going to see this differently, and I'm still going to come to Christmas, Eve or whatever, which I will probably fucking do. But, when you do that, it's really sort of abusive to yourself. And maybe it's just like getting into your 40s or something. I don't know what brought this on. This really started for me about 35, but I just started to get really tired of this shit. I don't think I have any relationships. I'm trying to think, is there any relationship where I have somebody around who I have expectations like that of, and at the same time, I am distorting reality to paint a situation where I was the bad guy as they were the bad guy. I don't think I have that. And I think this situation and the other ones that will undoubtedly arise like it, there are opportunities for me to make a choice one way or the other. It's continue to choose the old relationship with the baggage or not. And so I I invite more of these to happen. I was just thinking, how do I get this to stop? And now I'm thinking, bring it on, because that's what that's what they're here for. Every single one of these things is an opportunity. I'm glad this one was so distressing, because anytime somebody says something to me that is blatantly false and I know it, that's like an immediate reaction. But when they say it about me, and I feel like she should remember my childhood, I feel like she should remember the first 16 years of my life a little more accurately than that. That to me was like, I'm like, she's either having a issue. It's not that. It's what GPT said it is. She is rewriting the past because she is suffering from something now that she does not want to actually explore and resolve with herself. Yeah, whatever. I invite these to continue because it's exercise. You know what I mean? It's exercise. It's proving to yourself that you actually are embodying a different mental story. I don't know. Anyway, so consider this the unclogging of the channel, literally and figuratively. I'm going to consider this outpouring of shit to be the unclogging of the channel, the YouTube channel. And I hope that I know that this benefits people, because like it's just like I was just saying, slowly I'm understanding the benefit of this channel. Like when you have feelings about stuff and you can't name what they are, it's really difficult. Like a lot of things just start off as a big ball of like feels, like made up of a bunch of different aspects. And if you can't pick it apart and name it, like I feel uneasy right now. If that's the best you can do, that is really difficult to sit through. People do things to try to fix that. They go have conversations that they shouldn't have. They whatever, like I was saying, have like addictions and stuff like that, in order to make that feeling go away, because it's so uncomfortable. But if you can figure out what it is, then it just like dissipates. Maybe it's like you don't have the feeling. It's like your parent is rewriting your childhood and telling, like it's like that is has like a big like dry ice purple bubble around it, and you're like, what is this thing? I'm just feeling this big ball of shit, and then poof, it's like it all of that dissipates, and you can see my mother's rewriting my history. Okay, I don't really have a feeling anymore now. I have an understanding of a thing, and it still doesn't feel good, but at least I know what it is. It's not uneasy. Maybe it's a little uneasy. It's pretty fucking uneasy, but like I don't just feel this sense of dread. Now I see that like there was something that happened here that was pretty offensive, and I'm right to feel this way, and all is well in the world. When you just have that uneasy feeling, it's like a monster could knock down your door and get you. But when you know what it is, it shrinks it down to a manageable, if still shitty, level. So I hope that that's what this channel is doing for somebody. Just, somebody out there might have literally had a similar conversation with their family member last night, because I don't know, it's looking pretty widespread. Especially since many of us have older parents, and they come from a generation that is not exactly known for taking responsibility for their actions. So I'll leave it there, and I will post this. And yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.